Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a fascinating intersection of evolutionary biology, ancient history, and modern social trends. Imagine this. Over 2,000 years ago in ancient Rome, women from the elite classes were basically going on a marriage strike, refusing to tie the knot and have kids, which threw the empire into a demographic panic. Fast forward to today, and we're seeing similar patterns in places like Japan and South Korea, where birth rates are plummeting, and some point fingers at feminism empowering women to make their own choices. But how does all this tie into something called the Bateman gradient? Stick around as we break down the who, what, when, why, and how this ancient phenomenon relates to today's population crises. If you enjoy deep dives into history and society, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's get into it. First off, let's talk about the Bateman gradient. This concept comes from evolutionary biology and is key to understanding sexual selection. That's basically how mates are chosen and how that drives evolution. The who here is Angus John Bateman, a British geneticist who conducted groundbreaking experiments in 1948 using fruit flies. In his study, he looked at how the number of mates an individual has affects their reproductive success, meaning the number of offspring they produce. The what is the Bateman gradient itself. It's the slope of a regression line that plots mating success against reproductive success. A steeper gradient means that getting more mates leads to way more kids, which amps up competition and sexual selection in that sex. Typically, it's steeper for males because they can father lots of offspring with minimal investment, while females invest more in each pregnancy, so their gradient is flatter. Bateman's principles, as they're known, explain why males often compete fiercely for females, who are seen as the limiting factor in reproduction. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just about flies or animals. In human societies, social norms, laws, and culture can flip or flatten these gradients. For example, in monogamous setups with high paternal investment, the male gradient might not be as steep because men can't just rack up mates without consequences. And in some cases, women's choices can reverse the dynamic entirely. Bateman's work has been critiqued and repeated over the years, but it remains a cornerstone for discussing how mating behaviors influence populations. Now, let's time travel to ancient Rome around 9 AD. The who in this story is Emperor Augustus, the first Roman emperor who was obsessed with restoring traditional Roman values after years of civil war. He saw a big problem. The upper classes, especially the aristocracy, weren't marrying or having enough kids. Elite women, in particular, were refusing marriage. Why? Well, Roman women in the upper echelons had surprising levels of independence for the time. They could own property, divorce relatively easily, and wield social influence. Marriage often meant losing some of that autonomy. You'd be under your husband's legal authority, face the dangers of childbirth, which was risky back then, and complicate inheritances. Many preferred to stay single or childless to keep their wealth intact and enjoy personal freedom. This wasn't an organized protest, but a widespread pattern that alarmed the elite. The what was Augustus's response. In 18 BC, he introduced the Lex Julia laws to promote marriage and curb adultery, but they weren't enough. By 9 AD, the when, he enacted the Lex Papia Poppaea, named after two consuls who were ironically bachelors themselves. These laws penalized celibacy and childlessness harshly. Unmarried people between certain ages couldn't inherit fully. They'd lose half or more of bequests if they didn't marry and produce heirs. Childless couples got partial penalties, while those with 3 or more kids got perks, like priority in public offices or legal rights for women, the ius trium liberorum, freeing mothers of 3 from guardianship. The laws also banned marriages between certain classes, like freeborn citizens and prostitutes or actors, to keep bloodlines pure. Augustus even addressed the equites, knights, who complained, urging them to marry for the sake of Rome's future. Why all this fuss? Rome's population, especially among the elites, was declining, threatening social stability and military manpower. Moral decay from high divorce rates and extramarital affairs was another concern. But at its core, women's refusal flattened the Bateman gradient for men. Fewer willing partners meant less variance in male reproductive success. weakening traditional sexual selection pressures. Women were exerting choice, prioritizing their own lives over empire building through babies. These laws were unpopular and often dodged through loopholes like fake engagements, but they show how governments intervene when demographics go awry. Fast forward to today, and this Roman marriage refusal echoes in modern feminism. Feminism, in its waves from suffrage to today's focus on equality and autonomy, has empowered women to question traditional roles. The why here is choice. Women can pursue careers, education, and independence without needing marriage for security. This relates to the Bateman gradient by giving women steeper control over their reproductive choices, sometimes leading to delayed or foregone marriages and kids. Critics argue feminism contributes to falling birth rates by promoting individualism over family, but supporters say it's about fixing systemic issues like unequal childcare burdens. In egalitarian societies, higher gender equality correlates with lower fertility when support systems lag. Women's status directly ties to fertility. Better education and rights often mean fewer kids, as seen globally. But it's not anti-family. Some feminists advocate for policies like paid leave to boost births. This brings us to population decline in Japan and South Korea, where these dynamics are playing out dramatically. In Japan, the birth rate hit a record low in 2024, with just 686,061 babies born, a 5.7% drop from 2023. The total fertility rate, TFR, average kids per woman, fell to 1.15 in 2024, down from 1.20 the year before, far below the 2.1 needed for population stability. Births per 1,000 people reached 5.8 in 2023, the lowest ever. Marriages are plummeting too, contributing to this, as most kids are born in wedlock. Projections show Japan's population shrinking by 80 million by 2100 if trends continue. Why? Intense work culture, high living costs, and gender norms where women shoulder most childcare while working full-time. Many young women opt out, echoing Roman elites. South Korea's situation is even starker. Its TFR dropped to 0.72 in 2023, the world's lowest, then slightly rebounded to 0.75 in 2024 amid a marriage surge. But it's still dire, down from 0.78 in 2022 and hitting 0.65 late in 2023. Births rose 7% early in 2023, but remain historically low. Marriages jumped 14.9% in 2024, the biggest spike since 1970, boosting births slightly. Yet, the population could shrink by over 2/3 by 2100. Reasons include grueling work hours, housing prices, and patriarchal expectations clashing with women's rising education and careers. Feminism here amplifies calls for better support. But without it, many women choose singlehood. So, how does Rome's 9 AD crisis relate? Just like Augustus's laws tried to force marriages, Japan and South Korea are throwing billions at incentives, childcare subsidies, parental leave, but with mixed results. The Bateman gradient lens shows women's empowerment flattening male mating advantages, leading to demographic shifts. Feminism isn't the villain. It's highlighting inequalities that make family life unappealing. If we want stable populations, societies need to adapt, more equality, better work-life balance. What do you think? Is this a crisis or evolution? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this sparked your interest, share it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.